Did you know that Bob Clark, the guy who directed Black Christmas and A Christmas Story, also had a Vietnam War horror shocker that broke the mold for a lot of firsts with some famous people attached to it? Let's get into it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be talking about a spoiler-free and unboxing of Deathdream from Blue Underground, which is coming out the 21st of this month on 4K, UHD, HDR, the works. It also comes with the Blu-ray copy and a ton of extras, which we'll get into. But before we get into all that stuff, let me tell you what I thought of the film first. This is a movie that Bob Clark directed and Alan Ormsby actually wrote. Now, they were friends in film school at the time and re-met up later, years later, to make a couple of movies together. And one of them happened to be Deathdream, aka Dead of Night. It's also The Night Andy Came Home, and many more different names. But from here on out, we'll just call it Deathdream for the sake of it. Deathdream is a movie about a young soldier who's in Vietnam and is killed. His family is told that night that he had died, and they mourn the loss of his death when Andy comes a knocking at the front door later that night, returned home from the war, that they can't even imagine what he's been through. And this movie plays on that factor heavily. Now, this is actually the very first film in history to tackle the Vietnam War horror style. In this movie, a lot of people weren't touching it. The Vietnam War, of course, didn't end till after this movie, and it was still going on during this movie when it was being made and when it released. This came out at a very touchy time that was really kind of pushing the boundaries at the time. You know, this isn't a shy movie about a subject matter that a lot of people didn't want to talk about, or people were really kind of in a heightened situation to talk about in general. This is also Tom Savini's first movie to do practical effects on. Tom Savini did Dawn of the Dead and many other wonderful films. He's considered one of the greats. Tom Savini being the guy who went to Vietnam and based all of his practical effects off of whether or not it looks as real as that. He learned from Dick Smith, who, as he would say, Dick Smith was the best in the business. He was also the only one that would share the trade secrets of practical effects makeup with anyone. And because of that, we got to see a lot of practical effects. Thanks, Dick. This is a story that is loosely based off the Monkey's Paw story. Now, there was money and stuff like that involved in the Monkey's Paw. They could make wishes or something. This is one of those stories that is kind of a tale about be careful what you wish for. That's dealing with a couple of things that a lot of soldiers dealt with when they returned from Vietnam. Addiction was a huge thing. The shock of being in war caused people to act very differently, almost as if they weren't even the same person. And Bob Clark and Alan Ormsby really kind of tackle that situation in here and kind of add a lot of those elements in here. This is a 70s film, so there is going to be that sort of flair about it where everybody's acting in their best behavior, which kind of really shines a light on the misbehavior of Andy as he's sort of going through these motions. Everybody's, of course, writing it off as, oh, he went through so much. We just got to let him do it. You know, like killing friends and things like that. Well, you know, he went to war. Well, they didn't really know about that right up front or anything like that, but he gets into some pretty gnarly business. People start disappearing, people start dying, they start connecting the dots. And is it Andy? Is it something else? As the time goes on, obviously Andy gets worse, and a family that once was one of the happiest families on earth soon starts to tear each other apart. All of these kind of tropes are fit into the reality of the situation of Vietnam vets returning home to make it even more interesting and to kind of tell that story through that vessel. Kind of genius for this type of movie. A lot of people always say there's no politics in horror. Well, this proves you wrong right there. So now Richard Backus plays Andy, who I think does a fantastic job of playing the like stoic, crazy, angry madman that he is. that returns home to his family, and they just sort of forgive him for a lot of things that are happening, including one scene with a dog that is pretty gnarly. Kind of makes you wonder how they did it, because it looks kind of real. Just forewarning for those who love the poochies. But overall, this is a really fun story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it had layers to it that, you know, really play into the whole realistic aspect of vets returning home. The world around them is kind of moving on without them and forgotten about or treated as if they're some sort of monster. It's all kind of a metaphor and storytelling vessel for all of these things, and I think that makes it very interesting. There is some gore, some graphic stuff that happens in the movie, a lot of really cool makeup effects on Andy as he kind of deteriorates throughout the film, and it's definitely worth a watch, even being a 1970s film. If you're not used to watching 70s film, this was actually quite an easy film to watch. It really goes by very quickly, and I really enjoyed it. Plus, there's such a history behind it, and you know, a lot of firsts to it. Tom Savini, the Vietnam vet story, all of it. Bob Clark kind of pushing the boundaries. Alan Ormsby just pushing the boundaries in general with his characters. Oh, and I almost forgot, John Marley's in this, who was in The Godfather, and he plays the father of Andy in this film, and they kind of go back and forth in it. Now, this does have the extras included. This is a full version of the film, although there is some questions about it, and I would have to spoil the movie to really kind of explain that to you, but just know that this is the fullest version of the film that is available, and they even have the end part where Andy's mom talks about him in a specific way if you know this movie, so this is included in there. I would say this movie is probably about a 7.5 out of 10. It is very much a shocker, which is what they would call it back then. I think that's just a mix of like thriller and horror mixed into a story. And you know, the music actually helped to make this have an atmosphere and feel a little uncomfortable in a lot of situations as you see Andy kind of dealing with his environment and the kids and dogs and family and everybody involved. Goes all the way to the end, to the bitter end of this entire family pretty much just losing all hope and everything going wrong. I'm definitely glad I got a copy of this. I did not have this on Blu-ray or DVD, and so this is kind of like my first time ever watching it, which I'm really glad I did. I like 70s movies, and this is one of the good ones. But now we're gonna go ahead and jump into our unboxing of the film and kind of what the ingredients are inside and what to expect from some of the extras. So yeah, the Blue Underground release of Deathdream is pretty damn awesome. They do really good prints of their stuff. Now, if you're a person that's like super upset about a little bit of grain in your 4Ks, this one is going to have a little bit in there, but it's kind of a taste thing for some people. Some people don't like to have too much grain taken out of it, and then everybody's faces are all AI shiny. So you're not going to have anything like that. This isn't like a Ridley Scott movie or James Cameron film of any sort, you know, like with the 4Ks that came out. But this is going to be a solid 4K release from Blue Underground, and they do add some new stuff from the original Blu-ray that they've put out. This is their first time ever putting it out on 4K, and it does come with a slipcase. The slipcase is pretty cool, has somewhat of a newer artwork on it that looks kind of 70s old as well. Also, we have the reversible cover, which has The Dead of Night on the other side. And here's the back side. Personally, I just like to have one side that has the new cover, usually the slip, and then the old cover I keep underneath for that. Inside, you're going to get 2 discs here. One Blu-ray on the yellow side here, and then the 4K, which is in full HDR everything. Dolby Vision HDR. The aspect ratio is 185:1. Although I did have issues with the 4K disc on my Panasonic UB820K. I'm not sure why. It fixed itself after a while, but I had to keep opening and closing it for a little while. And I made sure that it wasn't the disc by playing it in another player. And it actually did play just fine in it. So there should be no problems. It may just be my personal player. Just a heads up on that. But yeah, everything should be fine with the disc. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We do have some extras here. Some of the newer ones I'll mention off first. New audio commentary with film historians Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson, and that's included on the 4K disc along with 2 other audio commentaries, one of them being the co-producer and director Bob Clark. A little quiet actually. The actual audio commentaries were very quiet on both of these except for the third one. The other one is the audio commentary number 2 with writer and makeup artist Alan Ormsby, and we also get on the Blu-ray, which has all the same stuff along with the first Andy, which is the interview with Gary Swanson, who was supposed to be the first Andy. They show some test screening and that's included in here. Recollection with star Anya Liffey and writer makeup effects artist Alan Ormsby, which they were actually married beforehand, so they kind of talk about their relationship and things that happened during that time. They got notes for a homecoming interview with composer Carl Zitterer, who talks about how he kind of came up with the idea. We also get Flying Down to Brooksville, an interview with production manager John Bud Cardos, a small documentary with Tom Savini called The Early Years, which is part of another documentary of him talking about his different films. We also got Deathdreaming interview with star Richard Backus, an Alan Ormsby student film, which is a slave movie that he did that is really kind of pushing the boundaries again. Alternative opening titles, theatrical trailers, still galleries, the works. And it is in mono, so you're only going to be able to hear it in mono on this particular version. So, which wasn't too bad. I mean, a lot of these 4Ks are doing that now. Yeah, that's everything that's in here. I really enjoyed this release. I think it's a good one. I wish the sound was up a little bit on the audio commentaries a little bit, but other than that, it's just a matter of turning up the volume, so not that big a deal. It would have been nice to see a little bit more extras, but they did add an entire new commentary, and they also have the interview with actor Gary Swanson in it, so that's pretty cool. But other than that, yeah, thank you MVD Entertainment Group for sending this out to me. Thank you Blue Underground for also allowing that. And yeah, if you're interested in checking this out, it comes out on the 21st of this month, and you can order it from all the shops down below. I'll give you links. Yeah, I hope that helps you guys to figure out what Deathdream is all about. Have you seen it? Have you been a fan of it? Did you enjoy it like I did? Because, you know, these older films, you know, sometimes it's a little long in the tooth and it's been a while. It could be up in the air whether or not this movie's interesting or not, but fortunately for me, it's a thumbs up. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I just put out a new video kind of telling you a little bit about the channel and what to expect going forward. We have a lot of new things that are happening behind the scenes that I've been doing, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. And as always, long live the void.